My name is John Bainbridge. I'm one of the senior caseworkers paying high cost bills based in South Tyneside. And today I'm going to go through how to submit some claims for high cost billing. So the first topic we're going to look at is how to prepare the claims. It's preparing claims in the CCFS scheme, which is the care case fee scheme. So first of all, some context to the team itself. So the team's largely based in South Tyneside. We've got 16 members, but not all of them are full-time. Not all of them process solely high-cost bills. But we do have 4 or 5 caseworkers who can process CCFS bills in both Bristol and Cardiff if needed. And of course, we do also have a lot of home working as well, which was also in place pre-COVID. So then CCFS claims itself, hopefully everybody should be familiar with the CCFS claims. So we'll just launch straight into it. So at the end of the case, the solicitor should submit the final bill containing the actual events attended. So these should reconcile with the events agreed for the date and the amount. It's really important that you get this the number of events actually reconciled with your agreement. And if there's any difference whatsoever in it in your events, then these need to be agreed with the HCF team prior to submission. If your claim doesn't reconcile, unfortunately, it will be rejected. This is one of the things that the team will check. So the LAA will assess the submissions. We are the assessing body, and we will only pay in accordance with that agreement. The final agreed case plan should be attached to the submission, along with all relevant orders, expert fees and disbursements. So these fees are really important that you get these right. They need to be submitted every time that you submit your bill, even where you've previously submitted these in part of the contract negotiations. The teams are separate for stewardship reasons. So where you've already submitted them to the high cost team, then they do need to be resubmitted when you put your bill in as well. It's very, very important because this is one of the things that solicitors do get wrong on multiple occasions, and it does cause unnecessary rejects, unfortunately. So your final submission for your solicitor should only be provided once all council claims have been processed or submitted. We can't process solicitor's final claim prior to the council, as this will result in payment on account recoupments before the final payments for council. We will come to some council submission problems and how to address those later in the presentation itself. However, council are able to submit their claims independently of solicitors where there is a CAF in place. So this is why we can pay council before the solicitors are paid. So only the last active firm should be the one that submit the final bill submission. Any previous firms need to have their costs agreed independently by the high cost team and submit bills, interim bills accordingly. All previous firms need to submit their claims in interim. So do please check to make sure that the claims have been submitted prior to you as the last active firm submitting your outcomes. Once you submit the outcomes, it takes away the ability for that previous firm to submit an interim bill, as that makes it a final bill only at that point. So it is really important that you do that, because again, we can't pay claims where all the bills haven't been paid, and the first firms, they aren't allowed to submit their bills. So you will run into problems if your outcomes are out of sync with the billing. So any solicitors agreed events containing family services scheme element, that's the only time that we can accept an interim bill from the last acting firm. And that's in CCFS matters itself. FAS claims, in that instance, we will take an interim bill and then a final. However, we will, of course, accept a single final bill submission containing all claimable work, including all solicitors' FAS, if that's preferable to the provider. We do also ask that all solicitors' FAS is presented on an individual line basis, along with all the relevant documentation that we need, such as court orders and AX 506s if required. And also just a quick reminder as well that we will require relevant 506 sheets for work claim pre-COVID, which is obviously prior to March 2020, as the court orders weren't noting that the FAS details were what the FAS details were prior to this date. And now I'll hand you across to Brian. Maybe we'll continue.
Right. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Brian Chapman. I work within the high cost billing team as one of the senior caseworkers and have done for approximately 10 years now. As John has covered in the previous section, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail around council issues in respect of high cost claims. As noted previously, council claims should be paid or at least submitted before solicitor's final claim submission. We're unable to process final claims from the solicitor where council costs are outstanding. All council should claim their own fees where cost allocation is made. If council are not processed with solicitor final claims, this causes real problems with regards to POA recoupments. Basically, what can happen is if council are not paid and they have POA on their accounts and the solicitor final claims paid, those POA to council will be recouped at the same time as the solicitor final. This is an inbuilt design feature of CCMS and causes real problems for council. Where council is specifically noted as an expert, for example, in foreign child abduction matters, this would be claimable as part of the solicitor submission. So basically, this is part of your disbursement costs on the matter, and we would need to know the usual rate and time noted on a fee note in respect of those particular costs. Since February 2023, a CCMS upgrade has been applied to council claims, which enables us to pick up their POAs independently of the solicitor final. So in effect, we can pay council claims before the submission of the solicitor final claim in a matter, but they need to be submitted before your solicitor final or at the same time. As I've stated, this is the requirement for submission at the same time as the solicitor's final claim, but as a last resort, they do have to be submitted with your final claim. Please note, this is only applicable where we have council CAF acceptance forms in place and it doesn't run in general billing. Council cost allocations should match the high cost agreements because we will check these against the contract. Where council does not reconcile and there are insufficient funds available for a solicitor's final claim, your claim will be rejected. If council is claimed in excess of the agreement, especially in FAS matters, then we'd recommend you contact the high cost family team to have the agreement amended before submitting your final claim in order that any discrepancies are addressed. You should also know it is in your interest in respect of your key performance indicators to ensure that costs are paid to council as they are agreed. So in effect, please check your council allocation screens before you submit your final claim in the matter. Okay, now I'll pass you back to John in respect of the next section.
So next we'll go through stage agreement submissions. So we'll go back to the slides, and stage agreement submissions on pre-contract claims are not subject to assessment by the case manager. These will be assessed by the high cost billing team upon submission. So all normal billing rules are applicable to that assessment, and any pre-contract agreement is not a formal agreement as it's work done pre-contract, as it sort of suggests. The costs are allowed on as a whole, but we will need to know how much is being claimed by council to allow the work and sort of work out how much is being available to solicitors for that pre-contract cost. So you need to basically provide us with a claim one or a claim one substitute that includes all of your work as well as the disbursements and expert costs. So you can submit a claim for full payment of solicitors costs and council costs for pre-contract as soon as the contract's in place, and therefore thereafter at the end of each completed stage. If the certificate is registered as high cost, you need to await the agreement of the contract before submitting the pre-contract claim, as all the costs noted need to form part of the overall contract price and for that agreement, even though it's still subject to assessment after that for the pre-contract costs. So it's an expectation submissions would be done within 3 months at the end date of the agreed stage or after registration, whichever comes first. So all stages should be submitted as individual stages too. So the interim claims that you get, we are aware there's no specific CCMS guidance regarding interim claims and how they should be submitted individually. However, we are in the process of drafting specific guidance, which we're hopeful to have in place at some point in Q2 2024. That is ongoing at this moment in time. So on post-contract submissions, the agreement specified by the case manager will be upheld in all instances, and elements within that stage of the whole agreement are not interchangeable. So this means that if profit costs are agreed at a certain amount, then that's the maximum amount that you'll be able to claim for profit costs. And should your disbursements or your expert fees fall under your agreed price, you can't transfer any excess funds across to the profit costs and be paid more profit costs. Similar for council fees, if council come in above what they've been agreed, then any monies can't be easily transferred from the solicitor's costs to the council costs. And that will all be sort of worked out by the finance team once the bills are submitted. So the agreement of FAS, expert fees and disbursements doesn't mean that these items are automatically payable as normal at those rates, still subject to assessment. So the case manager agreeing those costs wouldn't necessarily check them as far in as the finance case worker would check out the assessor. So the assessment rules apply in all cases unless any specific prior authority is granted. And what I would say is if you have had prior authority granted, then please let us know, as it's not always obvious to the assessor, given that these are generally recorded on a separate CCMS screen and to the submission of the bill. So sometimes it's quite difficult for us to understand if prior authority has been agreed. So if you just mark somewhere on your submission that is the case. So you also need to be aware that an expert instruction with the rate detailed in a court order wouldn't necessarily be allowable where this exceeds the published LEA rates, and prior authority will need to be granted. I know sometimes the judge or whoever writes your orders out, they do note that there isn't time to have that done by the LEA, and the expert needs to be instructed there and then. The prior authority team will, in most cases, get back to you within 2 or 3 hours to tell you whether the prior authority has been agreed. So it really needs to be applied for. And as I said, the grant of the court order wouldn't necessarily mean that we would pay those costs. And I'll hand you back to Brian for the next section.
Hello. Yes, what I'm going to address now is support and documentation that which should see in respect of all your high cost claims. So from 6th of June 2011, all certificated claims, so it's general billing and high cost in respect of the following, there's no distinction, are required. Sorry, all those claims require the submission of a disbursement voucher or expert voucher for any amount which has a value of more than £20 gross of VAT. So invoices from experts should be produced by the expert and should contain the following details: the expert's name, specialism of the expert, and the address of the expert, and where they are claiming travel, where they are travelling to and from, also the client name. The breakdown of the work undertaken should contain the hourly rate of the expert or contain sufficient detail to allow the hourly rate to be easily determined. Please note the LEA electronic handbook requirement in respect of this applies to all expert costs even prior to 2011. If in doubt, please refer to the electronic handbook. So support and documentation. So in respect of court orders are required to enable the processing of toxicology costs and transcription costs, unless in transcription costs these relate to an appeal in the matter. Is extremely helpful and reduces incorrect rejections or assessments where the orders are highlighted and numbered to confirm the requirements of each party to be tested, which with respect to which drugs are being tested, the length of time to be tested, and the type of test. So also in respect of the maximum hourly rate that should be paid to experts for travel time, the maximum amount that can be paid to any expert is capped at £40. It would generally be required reasonable to pay more than an expert's applicable hourly rate, whilst it is a discretionary decision is considered that 2/3 of the hourly rate would be considered reasonable, capped to £40. So I'll go into that, I'll explain that in a little bit more depth. So in respect of all experts will not pay more than £40 per hour, but there's certain experts which where their expert's rate is below that, specifically in respect of independent social workers, interpreters and process servers, they can claim up to 2/3 of their hourly rate in respect of interpreters and ISWs, which would place it under the £40 cap. And because of the work that process servers do, they would be paid at their applicable maximum rate, because in effect, the work that they do involves such an extensive amount of travel, will pay their full rate. So claims for mileage from both providers and solicitor and counsel, as well as experts, must specify the following: the destination and the mileage involved to allow the verification of the distance to be claimed. Is really important, as this is a subjective decision and we need this information to verify the mileage being claimed. So also in respect of train travel, you need to give us the destination to which the journey is made and the starting points. So in such situations where first class travel is claimed, unless unless the cost of this is below the standard train travel cost, it will not be allowed. When submitting a claim, as opposed to a payment on account, you must provide justifications as to why it was reasonable to travel by car rather than public transport. So if in doubt with an expert or disbursement fees, please check Part 10 of Electronic Handbook. So the last section, all relevant documents should be attached on each and every bill submission. The billing team need to have your documents for each submission, even if you provide them as part of the case planning task. The billing team do not have access to the same screens. We need to have your documents to assess your claim. This also applies in situations where claims have been previously rejected. Claims are assessed on their individual merits, so previous submissions are not generally reviewed when these claims are processed.